Hey there, 72 Sold team. We are having an elevator speech competition. So I thought I would give you a few tips and do one myself. So first of all, the basic 72 Sold elevator speech consists of 4 components. You don't have to use them all, you only have to use 2. So the 4 components are the credibility piece, and I see that in my mental outline as up above. Then you have the we sell homes in 72-hour piece, and then you have the we often sell homes for thousands over asking price piece. So those are the 2 I see in my little triangle, the one at the top, credibility, then this one on the right, the 72 hours in my mind, and then I see this one on the left, the selling homes often, and that has to be nuanced for thousands over sellers asking price. And then what I see below it in the little triangle, little diamond, is I see the fact that we're like Uber. The way Uber is revolutionizing the personal transportation industry, we are revolutionizing real estate. So those are the 4 components, and the reason I do this in talk tracks, and talk tracks, so you understand, for me, are talking points with my own words. And the reason I do that is because I have so many different scenarios, and I think you do too. It's really nice for me if just a quick outline pops up in my head, and then I can actually express what I want to say in a shorter or longer form. So I want to give you an example. So if somebody says to me, Greg, hey, what do you do? I'd say, oh, wow, I'm part of an international company that has had its home selling process featured on ABC, NBC, CBS, and even in Forbes. They found a way to sell homes in just 72 hours instead of the weeks and months it takes so often in traditional real estate. And they found a way to actually, in many cases, get sellers thousands more than their asking price, as opposed to in traditional real estate where sellers so often take thousands less than their asking price. You know how Uber has revolutionized the personal transportation industry by making personal transportation more convenient through their app, and has actually lowered the prices compared to taxis? This company has found a way to make the home selling process more convenient and actually help sellers get what they want, and that is higher prices. So there it is. You can see those 4 components, and I touched on the credibility piece, I touched on the 72-hour and compared it to traditional real estate, and I touched on the often, you have to use the word often because we don't always get over asking price, how many times we're able to get sellers thousands more than their asking price, and then I compared it to traditional real estate, how in traditional real estate so often sellers are disappointed, which we know is true, getting thousands less than their asking price, and then I polished it off with that comparison to Uber. Now, sometimes you'll be in a situation where you really don't want to say all that much. You don't have that much time. You can sense the person just wants to get it even quicker. So that's where, and this is why I like talking points, which I call talk tracks, which talking points are simply, as talk tracks, they are the talking points expressed the way I feel like expressing them at any given time, and even in some cases taking ones away that aren't essential. In the elevator speech, the only 2 essential talking points are the 72-hour and the potentially thousands over asking price. So watch this. Somebody says, Greg, what do you do? I'd say, wow, I am part of a company that found a way to sell homes in just 72 hours as compared to traditional real estate where it takes weeks and months, and a company that also found a way to get sellers many times thousands over their asking price, as opposed to in traditional real estate where sellers take thousands less than their asking price. So bang, I'm in and of that in 30 seconds or something. So I didn't do the credibility piece, I didn't do the Uber comparison, and I zipped through those 2 components quickly. I could actually even do it shorter without doing the comparison. So if somebody says, Greg, what do you do? Well, I'm part of a company that found a way to sell homes in just 72 hours, and in many cases for thousands more than the sellers are even asking. So there, I didn't even do the comparison. So this is why I like using talking points and then changing the way I express them, which I call talk tracks, to reflect whether I want to say them in a larger form, to say them in more detail, or in less detail. So the big lesson for today is on the primary, on the main, we'll call it version 1 of the 72 sold elevator speech, see these four main components: the credibility piece, the 72-hour piece, the potentially thousands more than the sellers are asking piece, that part, and then I see underneath that the comparative to Uber, knowing that you can eliminate the credibility one, eliminate the Uber one to shorten it up, to tighten it up, and just use the 72-hour piece and use the many times thousands over asking price piece. And if you really wanted to shorten it and just use those two, you don't even have to use the comparisons. So that is what I want you to see first, and always have that outline pop up in your head, which gives you the flexibility to express this in a longer form or a shorter form at any given time. Now, if people come back to you and they say, well, Greg, how does that work? The follow-up to this 4-point or 2-point elevator speech consists of two components. Well, see, so I've done the elevator speech, and they say, well, Greg, how does that work? And then I say, well, this company found a way to identify virtually every buyer for a home right away after the sellers decide to sell, and then to get those buyers competing against each other to drive up the price. Now, that probably took, 10 or 15 seconds to say. So that's your quick follow-up, where it's this mysterious way to identify buyers, and we do. We go all in to identify, and I didn't say every buyer. Notice my nuanced wording. I said virtually every buyer up front, quickly. There, I didn't go into how that is the time when buyers view homes to be perceptually worth more. You can expand that component and say, well, this company found a way to identify virtually every buyer for a home quickly right after the seller's list, and that's the time when buyers perceptually see the home as being worth more because it hasn't lingered on the market. So you see, I make that point. I can just make it, or I can elaborate on it by talking about how perceptually that is a really good time to identify buyers. And then there's the other component, and that is how we get buyers in a bidding war to drive up the price. If you want to expand on that, you could say, unlike traditional real estate, where typically there is no competitive environment, and that's one of the reasons why homes sell for less than asking price as opposed to more than asking price. So the last thing I want to say about this elevator speech is that when people ask you what you do, please never say, oh, I'm in real estate, or I'm a realtor, now that you have this to say, because I'm a realtor, I'm in real estate. Come on, guys, that's just boring. I mean, I'm proud of it like you, but give them an answer that would cause them to come back and want to talk with you, and this one would. And then the main thing to remember, the core thing to remember about what we call elevator speeches, and that is just your quick expression of what you do, which you should be talking to people about all the time, every day, not just in elevators, obviously, is focus on the result, not the process. I want to say that again. When people ask you what you do not talk about front-loaded marketing compressed showings. That's a process. That's for a listing presentation. You talk about the result. A result is selling homes in 72 hours. A result is selling homes for thousands more than asking price. So does that make sense? So when people ask you what you do, have those four components come up in your head, and they are the credibility piece, the 72-hour piece, the potentially selling homes for thousands over asking price, and the comparison to Uber. Know that when you're giving the 72-hour piece, and when you're giving the home selling for thousands, often thousands more than asking price, best to express them as a comparative to traditional real estate, best to do it. But if you want to say it quick, you don't have to. And know that you can always eliminate the credibility piece and the Uber piece to shorten it up. And then if they say, how do you do it? Again, you don't go into the process really. You simply do kind of a how, but without the process. And that is, we identify a lot of buyers quickly, and then we get them bidding against each other to drive up the price. I'd really like to encourage you to work on this, develop your skill, say it a lot, and then post a video here on the Facebook page. Don't worry about anybody critiquing you. All they're going to do is applaud you, and we're all going to see if we can polish this up, and polish it up. And you posting is simply going to do two things. Number one, it's going to help everybody be better by watching you. And number two, it's going to give everybody who didn't have the courage to do it to be inspired by you. Get the courage, go out and do it. So 72 Sold Team, I will be back with you tomorrow with a second version of the elevator speech, but between now and then, nail this so you can present it better than me.